Whether you're a coach or in sales, you're paid to facilitate results, obviously. We all are. But one of the ways that we facilitate results is by inspiring the decisions that are in correspondence with what our prospects and clients truly want. And a lot of times, our clients and prospects don't get what they need, and we don't get what we want because we fail to ask. Now, not all methodologies of asking are the same, which researcher Ellen Langer found out a couple of decades ago in some interesting research she conducted. So back in 1978, Ellen Langer, who was a professor of psychology at Harvard University, conducted an interesting experiment. Now, the experiment was conducted on a very busy campus when there was a long line of students waiting in line to use the copier machine. Now, you have to understand the context of the situation. This is back in 1978. You couldn't simply print something off of your computer or download an app, scan something, and email it off to somebody. So people made a lot more copies back then, and the consequences were pretty high for getting the copies done on time. So they were pretty serious about it. So Ellen Langer took 3 groups of students and sent them out with simple requests, slightly differing in nature. So the first group of students tried to just jump the queue, cut in line of a whole bunch of people by saying, look, I have 5 pages. May I use the copy machine? Now, a lot of people, rightfully so, can interpret that as a bit rude. But here's what she did with the second group. They asked a similar request, but they added a little bit more to it. So the student would walk in front of this huge line, go ahead and cut in front and say, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the copy machine? Because I have to make copies. Well, you're cutting in front of people who are in line waiting to use a copier machine. Obviously, everybody has to make copies. I mean, if you were cutting in front of the line because you wanted to order a spaghetti bolognese, I'd be gobsmacked. And the third group of students, they cut in front of the line and said, excuse me, I have 5 pages. Can I use the copier machine? Because I'm in a rush. Now, here's what's interesting. The first group of students that just simply announced, look, I want to cut in front because I need to use the copy machine, they got 60% compliance, which I thought was outrageously high. I would think 6% with an approach like that would be outrageously high, but I don't know, the benevolence of Ivy Leaguers. The second group of students, here's what's interesting, simply stating, can I cut in front of you because I have to make copies, got a 93% compliance on average. Now that's astonishing. Now, what's even more interesting is the group of students that cut in front and said, may I use the copier machine because I'm in a rush, got 94% compliance on average. And what the researchers concluded was the interjection of the word because gave the request a much greater degree of significance because people thought, being that they're receiving an explanation, the request must be more reasonable in nature. Now, think about the context and the application of this for your clients. If you're dealing with someone who's struggling to make a series of commitments in correspondence with a goal, you can simply say, Jane, one of the commitments you might want to consider. Now, notice how I structured that. If you lead with Jane, what I want you to do, and you crush Jane's sense of autonomy, in the very early part of that sentence, you're going to activate reactance, or in other words, she's going to become quite resistant to what you're going to say next. So you soften it by saying, Jane, one of the commitments you may want to consider. See how the word may and consider both soften that statement, is state the commitment because, and then give your rationale. By interjecting the word because and then giving a rationale, what you're going to say has a lot more weight, and then you would conclude the statement with a directive or close-ended question requesting the commitment. So here's how this would look. Jane, one of the commitments I think you may want to consider is ... because state the reasoning. Now, does that seem like a commitment you're willing to agree to.